Sky Bet League One had their headline slot this weekend, and it didn't disappoint. Not a single draw in its 12 games. So loads to get stuck into from opening day, starting with Huddersfield 3, Leyton Orient 0. What a start for new manager Lee Grant. The owner, Kevin Nagle, when appointing Lee Grant, got so overexcited in his interviews around that time that he accidentally said that Lee Grant would bring northern football to Huddersfield Town. And a lot of people went, what is that? And I don't think anyone particularly knew or could define it with words. Maybe it's more of a feeling. The club have certainly lent into it. Their Twitter bio says, welcome to the home of northern football.
Amazing.
And look, they are a historic club, Huddersfield Town. So there's an argument, they are up there.
Lee Grant from Hempstead.
That's north, from my point of view.
Of here.
North of central London is north, isn't it? Yeah, where does the north start? A classic question. What does northern football actually look like in the flesh? Maybe it looks like 6'5" centre-back Joe Lowe climbing so high to meet a lovely clipped Herbie Kane free kick delivery that he actually got above the ball, kind of missed his head and shouldered it in for 1-0. Huddersfield up and running first half against Orient. Obviously, both teams tons of change over the summer, squad-wise. Huddersfield let loads of players go and brought loads of players in. Most of the players they let go, they didn't really want. Most of the players they brought in, they're really excited about. For Orient, it's a little bit different in that the team that took them to the playoff final was gutted, mostly by default, because a lot of them were loan players, but also losing Ethan Galbraith. So they're kind of back at square one to a certain extent. Now, Orient actually won the shot count 10-5 in the first half. And I always think that's our duty on this pod. Scorelines can be very, very dramatic, can be noisy, can be exciting, and a 3-0 win for Huddersfield was a deserved scoreline by the end of 90 minutes. But early on in the season in particular, performance is what we're really trying to tease out in our analysis. And I think the fact that in the first half, it certainly wasn't one-way traffic, and Orient were giving almost as good as they got, Connolly in particular, with a couple of chances in the game. But Huddersfield's strong second half saw them pull clear pretty definitively. Alfie May with a penalty, a really nice commentary from, I think it was Paul Walker, who's an iconic EFL sort of featured game commentator for the highlights show. Alfie May, Alfie does, as he stuck it away, off and running. May, obviously one of the kind of billboard signings of the League One summer so far from the team that's done perhaps its most eye-catching business. And then the third goal, I think, just reflected the strength and depth that Grant has, and also, to a certain extent, the way in which he's already implementing quite a nice technical style of play with a lot of combination play, quick passing in short spaces in order to then make a key pass. And we saw Dion Charles, Sorensen, back to Charles, into Taylor, and then what I think was a really bad dragged shot, which was heading miles wide, was smashed into the back post by Ruskin holding the width on the left. And all four of those players, George, subs off the bench. Grant's got this impressive squad using the depth and the bench well and getting a big, big win. I think Marcus Harness and Ben Wiles, perhaps the pick of the starters. And you have to say, a very eye-catching start. We don't really know what Orient's level is because of all the change, but we certainly respect their manager. He wasn't happy with their display, but Huddersfield up and running.
Yeah, and I think there's an importance here for Grant himself. Like, this was his first competitive game in charge as a manager, and reputations get forged or ruined very, very quickly. And I think for a rookie manager to go at home in front of your own fans to win a game 3-0, to keep a clean sheet, I kind of build something straight away there, and we'll have people buying into him, and certainly fans excited about what's to come. It was interesting as well. I was kind of intrigued to see the way that he was set up. We kind of speculated that we were going to see McKenna Ball ×2 given his role within that side, and it wasn't necessarily like that. Like, it was very much like a back forward to really attacking fullbacks. Gooch playing on the right hand side, and Rowan, who often played the left side of a three for Lincoln, playing very much as an attacking left back up and down that left hand side.
Early injury for Rowan, and Ruskin came on and is an even more attacking left back, as we saw. So I think my assumption that they were going to play that similar kind of in possession three with one high fullback looks like it's not going to be the case at all. And they didn't really, obviously when you go ahead early, game state dictates you're probably not going to dominate possession to the extent that you would otherwise, but they completed under 200 passes in the game, again showing it's not kind of possession for possession. Under 200 passes in the whole game?
Yeah.
Wow. Not messing around.
No. Northern football.
Northern football.
None of that Suffolk stuff, eh?
What do you think about Orient heading into the season? Because Whelan's called their performance immature. He doesn't mince his words anyway, and he certainly wasn't going to allow for them to use the grace period, so many new players, as an excuse for what he perceived to be a performance I think he called boring. He said they more or less gave up in the second half. I must admit, it doesn't help my concerns that Wellens might not be that up for sort of starting again, having to start a whole new chapter with what is not an entirely new team, but particularly in midfield and up front, is incredibly different to last season. But then this is the way that he manages as well. So it's not out of character for him to be like this. And he's got such a good track record that you kind of trust him with it.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. Obviously, we get a lot of feedback on the 1-24s, but a couple of the more surprising comments we had were from Orient fans who thought we were being negative about their position just outside the playoffs. So a couple saying we've got a stronger squad this year than last, which I don't understand how you look at that.
That's tough to know for sure right now.
You look at the 11 that lined up, and it's just so different to what we saw at Wembley, and it's hard to see that it's not a drop off really. Like, of course, Connolly through the middle could be very good, but losing Kelman was massive. Adaramola at left back rather than Curry. You got Sean Clare playing basically the midfield, the deepest midfield role in a 4-3-3. I mean, Josh Koroma looked lively down the left-hand side with a bit of a point to prove against Huddersfield. And Simpkin in goal is obviously good, but replacing Feely, who has had such a brilliant season last season. So, yeah, right now they look a bit short, but we know they played the low market incredibly well last season. I've got a feeling that Orient's 11 with players coming back and players coming in is going to look very different in a couple of weeks. But yeah, it wasn't a terrible performance by any means, and they probably didn't deserve to lose the game 3-0.
That's why I was a bit surprised that Wellens went so punchy.
I know. Well,
there's a part of me that's like set piece header, then penalty, then sort of third goal for Gloss at the end. It's not
against the second richest team in the league, probably, or maybe So I'd agree.
That's Richie,
but we also know that Rich Wellens hates losing, and I think this was an outcome of that.
Well, we had our first taste of Lee Grant as well post-match, and very much
he basically went to the back of their dugout to shake everyone's hand. Did you see that?
Did he?
It was an incredible touch of class.
Big shaker.
I reckon he must have every single person in the away dugout. He shook their hand. He's like 6'4". He was like ducking at the back of the dugout, trying to get back to everyone. He does it every week. Yeah, he's gonna shake a lot of hands this season.
Power play, isn't it? Something like that. Yeah, he's very much in the modern never too high, never too low mold. We're getting a lot of managers like this in the current new crop. And he said, you can reflect on it now and say, oh, what a wonderful day. But there was lots in there that we need to get better with and we need to learn from. Of course, the result for the supporters, the result for the group in general is lovely, but it's important we are measured and don't get too far ahead of ourselves. Hold on, is that Kieran McKenna? Is that you? I think it might be. Tell me back.
It's like all these young managers go to like the same person for media training before they start the managerial career, and they pay however much, and it's the same advice every time. Just talk about not being too high, not being too low.
Yeah,
that's all you got to say every time.
It's a great North Star. Yeah. Cardiff beat Peterborough 2-1 lunchtime in South Wales, and just really nice to see Cardiff City fans happy and like invigorated. And Scott Johnson, who's I would say Cardiff City's premier blogger, as I perceive it anyway, and a great Twitter follow, he wrote, among other things, this was a great advertisement for relegation. And I thought, you know what? You've always said that sort of thing.
Yeah, that's my point. I was going to say here, that it's not every team, and I think in Cardiff and in Plymouth Argyle, we've got two clubs who've both been relegated out of the Championship, who've both made kind of similar appointments in terms of not going out and getting a wily old fox in order to get them back up again, like investing in young managerial talent. And the way they started the season suggests that, for one, it could be an amazing journey, and for the other, they're going to have to dig in. And in Cardiff's case, watching this game, having watched so much Cardiff in the Championship under Morrison, under Bullitt, and always just being pretty painful in terms of style of play, in terms of progression of young technical players who end up kind of almost being ruined by the style of play itself, to suddenly seeing a Cardiff side who the initiative was with them to dominate the game and to be the better team, and the young players playing with freedom and exuberance because for once they were the best players on the pitch. And in the Colwell brothers, that was abundantly clear, in particular with Ruben. For Brian Barry Murphy, the result is obviously important. Coming back from behind is important. But I think it's more just again, for a guy who comes in with his reputation pretty high after the Man City job, but who, realistically has had one senior role, and that was as a manager, and that was a Rochdale side who were very fun, but got relegated and conceded a lot of goals. For him to oversee just a really positive first day to get everyone buying in with a ridiculously young starting lineup, as was in weekend notes on ntt20.com this morning. I think, was it as average age of 23?
Yeah, the oldest player on the whole pitch was Ryan Wintle at 28. And he did sort of look like a dad playing in the park with a load of kids, because he looked absolutely excellent, kind of back in from the cold, having been out on loan last season. Archie Collins of Posh was the second oldest player at 25.
Ridiculous.
So every other player on the pitch was 24 or under. It wasn't just Cardiff going with the youthful exuberance approach, but I guess notable because it's kind of new and exciting for them.
And I thought, again, interesting Cardiff's approach. I wondered if we were going to see a really heavy possession side, but it was their press that was the thing that really caught the eye, like a proper man-to-man press, really aggressive in it and executing it pretty well. A couple of times Peterborough played through it as you'd expect, but for the most part, it kind of didn't enable Peterborough to really get out and create too much. And that's, in terms of the goals, obviously Ruben Colbill's goal, I'm not a huge free kick goal fan, as you know, but I think that is one that I can pretty happily get on board with. On first viewing, you're thinking, why is Bilio Kapic being beaten from there? It's quite clear they think he's going to cross, or I'd say the way that he strikes the ball makes it seem like he's going to cross it basically until impact. And the way that he hits it and the technique and flying to the top right hand corner, it is as good technically, and it has that kind of surprise factor, I think, from a free kick. And he was clearly the star of the show. Went close at 0-0 from forcing a good save as well. And then the second goal was a brilliant finish by Kapakiao, just really well struck on that kind of right hand channel. A young player who's come through the academy and is very much what this Cardiff side is all about.
18 years old,
incredible.
And he's already been called up to Wales once. So there's clearly, this isn't just like a, oh my God, we don't have any senior right backs. Who's going to play there? This is like, no, both at national and now club level, this is someone that they're taking very seriously, and you can see why.
So, a lot of positives for Cardiff. With Peterborough, they went ahead in the game thanks to a penalty. They hadn't really laid a glove on Cardiff up to that point. I was kind of surprised to hear towards the end of the game, I think it was Lee Hendry on co-coms, but like in the commentary of the game, kind of paying Posh some compliments, because I thought this looked to me very much like a game between a top end of the league team and a bottom end of the league team, and praising Peterborough for kind of being valiant in defeat and showing flashes. Yeah, I mean, it's where we had them, but I don't think it's where they see themselves. And I think they should be a side who, if they're going to achieve what they need, they're going to have to show more than that, because it looked to me relatively one way in terms of obviously they had a chance later on to get an equaliser, but I don't think it would have been justified personally had they got it. Again, a very young team and players who should develop very quickly with minutes. But I personally, watching this game in full, didn't necessarily come away from it thinking we'd got Peterborough wrong in our predictions.
Also down from the Championship, also winning by a single goal at home, this time on Friday night, Georgia. Luton Town 1, AFC Wimbledon 0. The performance of champions from our predicted champions. Or not.
What do they say about playing badly? No, I mean, they weren't too bad. It was the fun thing about this is, we've spoken about it a lot, like often first day of the season, first game live on Sky, you get a bit of a shock and something happens quite fun, or playing styles become apparent. With this, it happened an hour before the game where Luton's team came out, and I was on the bus going to the pub to watch it, and I just couldn't work out what was going on. So I texted our friend Ben, who's a Luton fan, saying, any ideas? And he was like, no, I can't really work it out either. They played, so many players who are nominally either centre-backs or full-backs or defensive midfielders, which seemed in part because of outgoings. Lonvik played at left wing back because Alfie Doughty obviously moved on a couple of days before. We have to expect, but we know we're going to see incomings there. Although it was weird that Milanek Ali didn't play there, given he played quite a lot there the back end of last season and did quite well, and they've got more options from in attack. And it didn't really work. Like, it felt like they were, they came up against an AFC Wimbledon side who we know are very physical themselves, and they kind of, at home against a team promoted out of the playoffs, they fought fire with fire, and I didn't really think that they needed to. And I personally would say that the better team in the first half were Johnny Jackson's Wimbledon. I thought they, without troubling Keeley too much, they looked the more likely, and they looked the more the ones with kind of a better plan, I guess. And even though it was an own goal that decided this one, it was still the one moment of real quality in the game where Nicky Wells on debut put in a ridiculously good ball in behind.
Good run, great pass.
Great run from Cauley Woodrow, and forced Johnson to do something, basically. It would have been a hell of a finish from Woodrow had he diverted it home, but Johnson kind of clipping it over the keeper off the underside of the bar and going in. And Luton looked good for the last 5 minutes. I thought Shandon Baptiste came on and looked very lively. Surprising, I guess, to see Walsh starting if Baptiste and Fana were fit. I thought he, as ever, kind of punched some very good passes out of midfield into the final third, but he gets caught in possession so much for a kind of ball-playing midfielder. I'm sure for Luton they'll step up on this. It wasn't vintage, but they got the job done.
Yeah, it's one of those where I had to remind myself that being very, very good defensively is a very good sign, and they were pretty strong defensively. Exactly. They've got so many impressive individual defenders, and the shape under Bloomfield, as it was last season, still looks solid at worst, and I think we'll be seeing many more clean sheets, but top of the pitch did not click whatsoever.
No.
I mean, Wimbledon also, I like the look of Bishop in goal. He didn't actually have loads of saves to make, but there was just something about the way he carried himself that made me feel very positive. I thought the back line looked about as good as they did last season in League Two, which is great to see. I thought the new wing-backs looked pretty good, and midfield looked pretty good. Obviously just didn't really get very close to scoring at any point, and that's going to be an issue. But I think, compared to some of the defensive displays across the league, that did make me feel quite encouraged for Wimbledon. That even if they're not going to score tons and tons of goals, that might take them a certain distance.
I should also say one very good save from Bishop from one of the sweetest struck shots I think I've ever seen from Royal Walters.
That was nice.
What was weird about it is it was such a strong hand. Like I thought live he must have parried it onto the post, because it was so the way that he dived and the way the ball kind of ballooned up in the air and then he caught it.
Steel wrists Bishop.
That's what they call him. Interesting. Yeah, Luton obviously bringing in Jerry Yates and rumoured to be bringing in Samson Tavid. So those are some pretty lively forward options when you add those to Ali and to Wells. So I think we'll see again. I think Luton are another one where their squad is stacked with quality, not necessarily particularly in terms of squad building. Right now, it's not the finished article, and I guess when we get to the end of August, I doubt we'll be seeing Longwick at a left wing back and other things like that. But their teams might make more sense on paper and therefore be a bit more fluent on grass.
Now, Plymouth Argyle did not make it a relegated team's winning treble. In fact, they lost 3-1 at home to Barnsley. Managed, of course, now by Conor Hourihane, who got the job full-time after being interim manager after Darryl Clark's departure. Back at Argyle, the club that he captained as a player when he was so young, and, of course, from whom Barnsley signed him, where he then became one of Barnsley's best players of the last 10 years. So there was narrative all over the show, and the defending all over the show from an Argyle point of view. Like, I want to celebrate Barnsley, but I think you can't talk about this game without talking about Brendan Wiredu's own goal under very little pressure at the back post after a set-piece delivery. What I would say in his defence is that Galloway, looking like he was about to head the ball and then kind of missing it or ducking under it when about half a metre away from Wiredu, made it quite hard for him to react and get his feet sorted. But it looked terrible. He then had a fight also in the first half, and then capped it off with a random sliced clearance straight up in the air towards his own goal, which Paulsen decided to let bounce because he couldn't judge the spin on it, and which was headed away meekly and smashed in sweetly by Adam Phillips. Good time to celebrate Adam Phillips, because it strikes me that like someone of his output would normally have got a move at this point. But it feels like even when it was Connell, Kane and Phillips, which felt like Phillips was the one who was certainly at the top end of the pitch, and that is more of his role than the other two who sit a bit deeper. But like his output has been excellent for like 4 or 5 years now. If you look at his last 5 full seasons before this one with Morecambe and now with Barnsley, 14 goals and assists, then 12, then 17 and 15 goal contributions. And goals are a big part of it as well. He's not an assist merchant. 9 goals, then 11, then 9 last season for Barnsley, and up and running here. So I think, in Phillips, you've got someone who pretty much guarantees goals from midfield, which is a great thing for Hourihane to have. In Vimal Jonganathan, we saw a much anticipated debut. This is a young player, central midfielder, tall, leggy, athletic, who sparkled on loan at Oldham last season, played the first hour here and did very well, acquitted himself really well. They had, there's bits of this Barnsley side which on paper still look a bit wonky to me. Like, you've got Dejavini now playing right back. That's where Harahan says he sees him playing this season. They're pretty light on natural right backs. Josh Earl played at left back, where I'd say naturally he's probably more of a left-sided centre-back in a 3, but they're playing a 4 now. They have got Gent, Ogbeta and Farrugia, who can all play an attacking left-back role as well, but Earl starting in this one. Then up top, you had Didzi as the kind of 9.5.
Yeah.
You had DKD sort of nominally playing off the left,
Everywhere.
but obviously picking up that central position. And then it was Caelan Vickers wide right. And I just wonder how many more attacking additions that might come in, because at the top of the pitch in particular, they do look quite light.
Quite reverse Mullety.
Interesting.
Like a very flat back 4, and then Luke O'Connell sitting in front, and then you guys just go for it.
Party time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, they were gifted 3 goals. Let's be honest about that. That all of the goals were a horror show from an Argyle point of view. The last one, just comedy stuff. The ball forward, one of the defenders heading it onto the back of the other defender and rolling through for Keylor Dunn to finish 1v1. As Craig pointed out in a great match preview on NTT20 Squad, it's a back 4 of Sorinola, Polshan, Sush and Galloway. Argyle conceded 88 goals last season, and it probably would have been more had they not signed Katic and Maxi in January, who are no longer there. And now it's just the guys who were so poor in the first half of the season previously. So lots for Tom Cleverley to work out. The one ray of sunshine was Caleb Watts,
Yes.
who played up top, even though that's not his natural position, and was absolutely brilliant here. Really, really excited about his performance, but not about Argyle overall.
Jamie Mackey had a tough time with this on Soccer Saturday.
Yeah.
Because Caleb Watts' goal was disallowed a long time after it went in for the first goal. And then he got absolutely done by the video printer, who just decided to rule out a goal that had stood. And it was almost a classic Cammy moment where they said, Jamie has been ruled out. And he was there being like, I'm pretty sure it hasn't. Absolute panic. And you could see it on his face. But yeah, it was a kind of bonkers game. And I do think with Cleverley in particular, like when you have a home game first up and your first game into a new job, something like this happening where you concede 3 goals. Yeah, there might be some kind of liveliness, but for the most part, you look defensively very poor. Quickly now, it shifts where you and I sat there. We weren't particularly positive on our goal. We had them just outside the playoffs. But you look at that performance there and you're looking at the team now and you're thinking, concerns that there's probably there's no reason why this can't be you don't want to overplay it, but their performances have to improve from here because, on Saturday they were bad.
Blackpool 2, Stevenage 3.
Yes.
George, this is like the Lloyd's TSB advert from back in the day. My lovely, beautiful, dark horses just galloping along the beachfront and leaving with all 3.
I mean, this was a game dominated by debutants for good and bad reasons, effectively. The first being George Honeyman, who his persistence, as you can rely on, paid off, kind of scrapping down the left-hand side, capitalising on a defensive error, I think, from Wimbledon, and firing in at the near post to make a 1-0 early on. And, for a Blackpool side who've recruited heavily, for one of the players who I think that we were all pretty impressed they recruited into League One to score early on, it felt like a pretty good start. But after that, it was an absolute disaster. There are 2 big signings early in the window. First one, Fraser Horsfall, who just plays one of those back passes where he just hasn't looked behind him. He's just panicked in possession. He's just decided he's going to fire it towards Bailey Peacock-Farrell in goal. He's 28 now. It blew my mind.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. Still think of him as being a young keeper. And Horsfall sent it back to Peacock-Farrell. It was anticipated brilliantly by Reed, who then rounded Peacock-Farrell and fired into the empty net from a relatively tight angle. The next goal comes from the penalty spot after Michael Ahikwe just decides to lift his arm in the air as he goes up for a header and diverts the ball away. Another debutant, another really impressive signing, who's normally pretty reliable. And then the third goal comes from Dan Kemp after Bailey Peacock-Farrell, with playing out from the back, basically passes it straight to the Stevenage player, and they concede. So there are kind of 3 big bits of recruitment in defence, all making individual errors leading to goals, having been 1-0 up. And then Niall Ennis, who of course was there at the back end of last season on loan, but has now joined permanently, racing through to make it 3-2 with a nice finish, 1-on-1. But Blackpool could not find the way to get an equaliser. So, yeah, I mean, there's no point. Unlike the Argyle performance, which I think generally was really concerning, I think with Blackpool, you're looking at individual errors. And I think with Bruce and the experience of guys like certainly Ahikwe and with Horsfall, we know that Peacock Farrell isn't immune to the odd clanger. I don't think we'll see this that often. For Stevenage, it was obviously impressive, and you look through the starting 11 on Saturday, and there's a lot of quality in there. As we mentioned on the 124s, and but I'm sure Alex Ravel will know that they were gifted 3 goals at a ground where not many will be, but certainly it was a really impressive start.
Impressive start for Wigan Athletic. They beat Northampton 3-1.
I just realised it was Houghton, not Wimbledon, so I take it back. Luther James
With
Wilden.
Apologies to Luther James Wilden.
Correct.
Jordan Houghton. Sort your legs out.
Correct.
Sort your feet out. Well done for correcting yourself.
Well, I just thought if he was listening, he'd be like, that's unfair. You just done me. I hope he's still listening now.
Rewilding, we call that. In the
well done.
In the what's it called? Horticulture game. Wigan 3, Northampton 1. Fraser Murray. Such an SPL name, but now we've got him in the EFL. And look, the NTT20.com transfer team are bloody impressive. And I do not include myself in that. And I certainly don't include you in that. But someone wrote up Fraser Murray very positively and said, look, this is a guy who is going to play out wide, and whichever side he plays, he's going to provide really good delivery. He's going to provide good legs, good quality, great set piece delivery. That's what I want from a wing back in a Ryan Lowe 3-5-2. And he scored 2. And he scored 2, and playing right wing back. And on the other side was Joseph Hungbo, a left-footed, dynamic attacking player playing in a new role and looking like it suits him very nicely indeed, thank you very much, with 2 assists. One of them, brilliant piece of wing play and a great cross, which Murray finished at the back post. And then a nice set piece that was flicked in by Jensen Weir. So yeah, really excited mainly to see the attacking thrust from the wing backs, because I think that is going to make or break basically whether Wigan are a team that occasionally scores 3 goals at home, which is what I want to see more of, as discussed on the 1-24s. But also, Christian Sadie's performance had people going crazy. And what was funny is I was watching clips on Y-Scout of Tobias Brennan, who's a really young midfielder that started this game. And the thing that excites me on opening day is when you see a kind of an unknown or a surprise youngster starting for a team. And Brennan was the big example of that in League One. You look into him a bit more, it turns out he only joined Wigan quite recently. He used to be part of the Oxford United Academy.
Captain, I think, with the under-18s.
And now he's at Wigan and starting games in League One, which is an interesting one. So I went to watch clips of Brennan, and I was pretty impressed, and he looks like a really exciting young player. I can see why Lowe likes him. I can see why he looks like the sort of modern number 8 profile that you're looking for, sort of leggy athleticism. He looked quite raw, and he looked a bit overexcited on the ball, but overall I was excited to watch some Brennan clips. But the main thing I saw was like 10 examples in the first half of a Wigan player, normally a defender, like fizzing a ball into Sadie back to goal with a defender on his back, and Sadie just trapping it dead, muscling off the defender, spinning, playing it outside him and getting into the box. And like, I love players like that because he's not tall like a normal target man, but his upper body strength is absolutely ridiculous, and you can see how powerful that is, literally and figuratively. People were loving his performance. Costello played up front with him. Mullin and Asamoah came off the bench, so all of a sudden it looks like Lowe's got some decent options and profiles at the top of the pitch. They missed a couple of sitters in the game as well, so they could have scored more than 3. And it was a positive start. I must admit, this is at home to a Cobbler side that we're pretty worried about. I don't think this performance gave us any reason for much positivity. It doesn't look to me like Nolan has a lot to work with. And I will be keen to see Wigan at Orient next weekend against a better side on the road. Might have to do a bit more defending because on paper it doesn't necessarily look like the sturdiest defence to me, but we will see. Great start from them. Stockport also won. They beat Bolton by 2-0 on Sunday, and Bolton were pretty good here. I was finding their performance pretty promising, would be my starter for 10 here. They should have had a nailed-on penalty and red card at 0-0 when Burstow was pulled back by O'Keefe when he was very, very well placed. Absolutely no doubt in my mind that was a foul and a red and a pen. Not given, but they look bright. Cozier Dewberry off the right in particular forced a good save out of a die, and Dave Chandler said they would have been lucky to go in half-time level let alone in front, which they were. Mothersill deflecting in a Norwood shot. They didn't play very well. Challoner admitted that. The players interviewed admitted that. They were a bit better in the second half. They showed a bit more, maybe some resilience, some character. They're a team that's used to winning, and they saw it out with that second goal. But let's not forget, Conway hit the post. A die was needed once again with a big save. Like, the 2-0 scoreline didn't reflect the way this game looked. And so overall, kind of taking some Bolton positives. And just excited to see the fact that Kyle Wootton, who's got some good delivery from the left wing now in Owen Dodgson, who swung in an amazing cross, which he headed over the bar. It's going to be perfect for Wootton, who's so good aerially. He then headed home the second, set piece delivered by, Danny Andrew.
I know. So weird, this. I had no idea he was a Stockport player until I saw the replay. And I looked at him and I was like, what's he doing there? But we know that he has a very good left foot, and especially his set piece delivery is brilliant. And yeah, it was his ball through to Wootton to get the goal that won it. Would you say you're a member of the Carl Wootton fan club?
Yeah, I think so.
Do you call yourself as the Wooton clan?
Yes.
Amazing.
Yes, we do.
But I agree with you. I think the main takeaway from this was definitely Bolton. My assumption is, given how dominant they were in the first half, and then how the first 50 minutes of the second half went, I think that goal really rocked them.
Yeah.
Because they're a young team, and they were, to go in having played that well, having had so many opportunities, and to be behind, it wouldn't be a surprise if that rocked them a bit. But as you said, they came close a couple of times. Brilliant strike from Morley. They just went wide. So yeah, I think Bolton looked to me to be a team to take away from this weekend and look past the result and see what was a really promising performance. 2
home wins for 2 League 2 promoted sides. Bradford City 2, Wycombe 1, and Donny 1, Exeter 0. Where do you want to start there?
I think Donny 1, Exeter 0, because even though this came thanks to a very late penalty and a relatively soft penalty, I would say as well, Doncaster were impressive in my mind. This is a real classic case of Donny good or Exeter bad, because this was really, really dominant. If you look across League One on opening weekend, Doncaster top quite a few metrics. They had the highest expected goals as per FOTMOB with 2.6. They had nearly 100 passes completed more than any other team in the whole league with 481. The most touches in the opposition box with 33. Now, I don't anticipate that Doncaster Rovers will be one of the highest possession teams in the league this season. It shows just a level of dominance they had over Exeter, with Exeter basically being pinned and offering very, very little by way of attack. So either, and to my mind, yes, Doncaster won the league last season and are a lot of people's kind of dark horses themselves, but for Exeter to be played off the park to this extent is a bit of a concern. And for them to be kind of clinging on for a point, as they were late in the game, is a little bit of a worry, I would say. One amazing block coming. It was Ajayi, the Loney from Spurs, had a really good opportunity from kind of 6 yards that was diverted over the bar. But apart from that, Exeter offering kind of little from an attacking perspective, and then the goal coming from the spot, as we say, with Molyneux putting it down the middle. So yeah, Doncaster, a resounding 1-0 win, albeit they left it late, but work to do for Exeter.
Yeah, last we saw at Valley Parade, absolute bedlam when they won promotion at the end of last season, and they started pretty strong here, I would suggest, with a 2-1 win at home to Wycombe Wanderers. Some new players looking pretty feisty. Josh the Knife, Max Power, Stephen Humphreys.
Yeah, dominant for the first 15 minutes, and that was enough to see them 2-0 up. Poynton and Sarcevic getting the 2 goals. Sarcevic profiting from some really poor keeping. I think when you have a new young goalkeeper, as Wycombe doing Mickey Van Sass, you probably don't want them to be making errors leading to goals within 6 minutes, albeit he did make a very good save in the second half that didn't make up for it because the mistakes cost them early on, but showed some level of competence. But yeah, Sarcevic and Poynton put them 2-0 up early. Wycombe then had a lot of the ball, as you'd expect them to, from 2-0 down. Some promising spells, I guess, but Bradford saw it out relatively comfortably. Daniel Udo scoring with a nice finish to make it 2-1. A lot of talk still that Richard Kone looks like he might be off to Swansea. He wasn't in the squad, which suggests that might be the case. You would think he would have at least been selected on the bench had they still harbored any hopes of keeping him. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting because Dodd to the back end of last season, the football was relatively poor. The defending was pretty good. here, and he's spoken over the summer of kind of trying to implement his style of football and his philosophy now with a proper pre-season. The defending wasn't particularly good, but the football looked better. So exchanging substance for style, maybe. But I do think probably being 2 down played into that, with Bradford happy to kind of sit out of possession and soak up pressure, as they did relatively well. Should also say Vestergaard missed an absolute sitter as well.
I let out a genuine yelp of delight when I saw their team sheet and I saw the 2 forgotten Scandies starting. Yeah. Hagelskar at the back, Vestergaard in midfield. They've just been on ice for 6 months.
Very good.
Thanks. Lincoln 2, Reading 0. Good start at Sincilbank. Very unfortunate if you were Finn Burns. Fortunate if you're Lincoln City, goal that put them ahead. Really nice play from Wickens, the goalkeeper. He's got a really impressive kick, I must say. And he picked out Rob Street, playing as a right winger for Lincoln. Partly on account of Jovan Makama's imminent move to Norwich. In fact, I think it's already been confirmed. Yeah. So Rob Street on the right wing, not a natural position for him, but did a pretty good job here. Latched onto a long ball over the top, burst down the line, and Burns, with some recovery defending, got a block in, and the ball just flew into the near post with the goalkeeper expecting the cross. Wickens made 2 good saves from 2 trademark Lewis Wing shots from range. One of them was tapped in by Camara, who was decided to have been offside. It looked pretty tight. So just, fine margins, I think it'd be fair to say, that had Lincoln 1-0 up in this game, albeit Reading didn't look that great going forward outside of the wing shots. I think it's also fair to say that Lincoln weren't exactly peppering their goal. So defence is mostly on top. And then the 2-0 goal, lovely ball over the top from McGrandles. Rico Hackett in behind, Reading high line split, and he finished well. So I think Lincoln, the positives are they lost Rowan, they lost O'Connor, but did a pretty good job restricting Reading here. Looked fairly solid, as you might expect. Didn't create loads of chances, and that's something that I want them to improve on. Losing Makama surely won't help with that. Be interesting to see what they do in the transfer market with that windfall. But I'm probably not drawing too many conclusions either way with this one after Lincoln's 2-0 win at home to Reading. And what to think about Rotherham 2, Port Vale 1. Because we saw Rotherham race into a 2-0 lead, both goals by Sam Nombe, with a great start to the season. Possibly my favourite assist of the weekend from Joe Rafferty, who, a lot of people would call this a cross, but he's 50-odd yards from goal on the right-hand side, Rafferty. And Nombe, who he plays it to, at the point of the pass, as I'm calling it, is 30 yards from goal. And it is just the most perfectly weighted and perfectly curled pass onto Nombe's foot for him to score the opening goal. Nombe then made it 2-0, picking up the pieces from a set piece, nodding home from 2 yards, which I feel like I saw him do quite a lot last season. He certainly occupies that zone and tends to get on the end of things. Good movement, good positioning, good finishing. And then Reds all over. Jaheim Headley lunging in, sort of kicking the ball, but in a wild way that led to him then clattering Nombe and getting sent off. Zach Jules got a red card for pulling down Vale attacker who was streaking clear. So both teams with 10 men. Vale 2 goals down, peppering Rotherham's goal. Connor Hall scoring at the back post to make it 2-1. And then it was not seen out with any level of comfort whatsoever. Tulai hitting the post in the 93rd minute, almost nicking a point for Vale. So I'm not really sure what I'm taking from the result here. It's obviously a bad first 20 minutes, first half hour for Vale, but it's not like Rotherham were absolutely battering them, just 2 early chances taken. And then Rotherham's ability to see this game out certainly had some red flags as well. So a winning start for them. We'll wait and see what happens with both these sides in their next game. And finally in League One, the Nigel Clough derby was won by 2-1. Burton, that is, winning at home to Mansfield.
Charlie Webster.
Oh, stop it, Charlie Webster.
2 really good goals. The first of which in particular was a real bit of quality. I think he is someone who's going to have a big season. And I wonder if he could come in for some interest by the end of the window, because he's someone who's, it doesn't help that you go and score a brace and 2 goals that people are going to see because of the quality of them. But his kind of creative numbers, his tenacity off the ball, the fact he's only 21, playing for a Burton team who, in terms of, I think his quality, he could easily be a top-end League One player or a Championship player. So I'm intrigued to see how that plays out. But that was kind of...
Goals were just
so good.
Nice.
The first goal in particular was absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
Like, it was such a good touch out of his feet. And then the kind of ping into the top right. Bailey Cargill got one back with 50 minutes to go, but Mansfield weren't able to get the equaliser. What I would say about Burton is I didn't think they were great. I think apart from 2 moments of quality from Webster, they didn't show too much. But nonetheless, it's an important 3 points. For Mansfield, again, looking through their 11 on Saturday, I'm a little bit concerned about their quality, and certainly if they've got enough creativity within that team.
What a start to the season in Sky Bet League One.